In the year 1206, on the open steppes of Central Asia, a man with no kingdom, no navy, no written language, and no city to call home, declared himself ruler of the world. Most people laughed. Within 50 years, a quarter of the Earth's surface answered to his name. His armies killed so many people that the global temperature dropped. His postal roads connected China to Europe for the first time in history. He destroyed civilizations that had existed for 3,000 years, and accidentally created the modern world in their ruins. His name was Genghis Khan. And this is the entire history of the empire he built. To understand the Mongol Empire, you have to understand where it came from. And it came from nothing. The Mongolian steppe in the 1100s was not a civilization. It was a collection of warring tribes, constantly raiding, enslaving, and killing each other. There were no kings. No laws. No loyalty beyond your clan. Life was short, brutal, and completely at the mercy of the weather. Into this world, around 1162, a boy was born to a minor tribal chief. He was named Temujin, meaning iron, or blacksmith. His father was poisoned by rivals when Temujin was 9 years old. His clan abandoned the family on the steppe to die. His mother kept her children alive by feeding them roots and berries. By age 12, Temujin had already been enslaved once. He escaped by hiding in a river for hours, breathing through a reed. His childhood was the steppe at its most brutal. And it made him something the steppe had never produced before, a man who understood both suffering and strategy. As a young man, Temujin did something no Mongol leader had done before. He built alliances across clan lines. He offered something radical for the steppe, loyalty that wasn't based on bloodline. Join me, he told people, and I will protect you regardless of where you were born. Your bravery matters more than your tribe. This was a revolution. Slowly, then all at once, warriors flocked to him. By 1206, he had united every major tribe on the Mongolian steppe. At a grand assembly called the Kurultai, he was declared Genghis Khan, universal ruler. One powerful drum hit. Then silence. What happened next was unlike anything the ancient world had seen. In the space of 25 years, the Mongol army conquered more land than the Roman Empire did in 4 centuries. But how? The Mongols had no siege engineers. No iron foundries. No navy. What they had was speed, discipline, and a military doctrine that was 400 years ahead of its time. Their tactics were psychological as much as military. The feigned retreat, luring enemy cavalry into a chase, then turning and annihilating them, worked so consistently that experienced commanders kept falling for it. Because it was almost impossible to believe that a fleeing army was actually the trap. Every Mongol soldier was a horseman from childhood. They could ride for days without stopping, sleeping in the saddle, eating dried meat and mare's milk. They traveled at speeds that foot armies couldn't comprehend. 60 miles a day was normal. Their enemies would hear they were coming and assume they had weeks to prepare. The Mongols would arrive in days. Genghis Khan made a standing offer to every city he approached: surrender, and you will be treated well. Resist, and nothing will remain. He kept both promises without exception. Cities that opened their gates were taxed, reorganized, and left standing. Cities that resisted were reduced to rubble. The populations who survived were sent ahead as human shields for the next city, walking proof of what defiance meant. In 1219, Genghis Khan turned west toward the Khwarezmian Empire, one of the most powerful Islamic states in the world. The Shah had made a mistake. He executed Genghis Khan's trade delegation and killed his ambassadors. This was not a diplomatic incident. This was a death sentence for an empire. Within 3 years, cities that had stood for 2,000 years were gone. Samarkand, a city of 500,000 people, surrendered and was spared. Urgench resisted. It was flooded by diverting a river directly over its ruins. The Khwarezmian Empire ceased to exist. Its Shah died alone, fleeing to a small island in the Caspian Sea. When Genghis Khan died in 1227, possibly from a riding accident, possibly from an arrow wound, possibly from illness, the conquest didn't stop. His sons and generals kept going. And the empire they built in the next 40 years was the most geographically vast in human history. Under his son Genghis Khan, the Mongols launched the greatest cavalry invasion Europe had never seen coming. In 1241, Mongol forces simultaneously destroyed a Polish-German army at the Battle of Legnica and annihilated the Hungarian army at the Battle of Mohi, 2 countries, 2 battles, 2 days apart. Western Europe lay completely open. Nothing stood between the Mongol cavalry and the Atlantic Ocean. And then, they stopped. Genghis Khan had died back in Mongolia. The generals turned around to vote on a successor. Europe never knew how close it came. At its height, the Mongol Empire was extraordinary in ways history rarely discusses. Within their borders, they enforced something called the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol peace. Merchants could travel from Beijing to Persia without being robbed. A postal relay system called the Yam stretched 3,500 miles, messages could cross the empire in weeks. Marco Polo traveled this network. Religious tolerance was absolute. Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, and shamans all practiced freely under Mongol protection. This was the most connected the ancient world had ever been. But connection carries everything, including what comes next. In 1258, Hulagu Khan, grandson of Genghis, arrived at the gates of Baghdad with an army of 150,000 soldiers. Baghdad was not just a city. It was the intellectual capital of the Islamic world. The House of Wisdom, the greatest library on earth, held over 400,000 manuscripts. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, philosophy, all of it, gathered in one place. For centuries, scholars had come from every corner of the world to study here. It was the beating heart of human knowledge. And it had 12 days left to exist. The Caliph refused to surrender. He reportedly laughed at Hulagu's ultimatum. He had ruled for 36 years. He believed God would protect him. The siege lasted 12 days. What followed was one of the most catastrophic destructions in human history. The Mongols entered the city and killed between 200,000 and 1 million people. Historians still debate the number. The Tigris River ran black with ink from the manuscripts thrown into it, and then red with blood. The House of Wisdom was destroyed. Centuries of human knowledge, gone in days. The Islamic Golden Age ended in those 2 weeks. The Caliph was executed, reportedly wrapped in felt and trampled by horses, so that royal blood would not touch the ground. A superstition. A small mercy in a merciless week. The Islamic world would not fully recover for 2 centuries. Empires, by their nature, carry the seeds of their own collapse. The Mongols had no fixed rule for who inherited power. By the late 1200s, the empire had fractured into 4 separate khanates, each ruled by a branch of Genghis Khan's family. And these khanates didn't cooperate. They fought each other. The Ilkhanate in Persia went to war with the Golden Horde in Russia. The Yuan dynasty in China warred with the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia. The Universal Empire had become 4 regional ones, each forgetting what had made them unstoppable. And then came the enemy that no cavalry could outride. The Black Death. Historians now believe the plague originated in Central Asia, and spread westward along the very trade routes the Mongols had built. The Pax Mongolica, which had connected the world, now connected its suffering. By 1350, the plague had killed between 30 and 60% of Europe's population. It also devastated the Mongol khanates themselves. An empire built on population and movement was uniquely vulnerable to a disease that spread through both. The steppe camps fell quiet. The relay stations stopped running. The greatest communication network on earth went silent. In China, where the Mongols had ruled as the Yuan dynasty for nearly a century, the end came from below. Chinese peasants, crushed by taxation, humiliated by foreign rule, devastated by floods and famine, rose in a movement called the Red Turban Rebellion. A peasant named Zhu Yuanzhang, a man who had been a monk, a beggar, and a bandit, united the rebels. In 1368, he drove the Mongols out of Beijing and founded the Ming dynasty, one of the most successful empires in Chinese history, born directly from the ruins of Mongol rule. The Mongols rode back north to the steppe. Back to where it all began. In the west, the Golden Horde faced a different kind of ending. In 1380, Prince Dmitry of Moscow refused to pay tribute to the Mongol Khan. At the Battle of Kulikovo Field, Russian forces defeated a Mongol army for the first time in history. The psychological blow was more devastating than the military one. The Mongols could be beaten. And once people believed that, the Golden Horde never recovered. By the early 1400s, it was effectively over. The last remnants of the Mongol Empire splintered into small successor states. The steppe, which had produced the greatest military machine in history, went quiet again. History has never quite decided what to make of the Mongol Empire. 40 million people killed during the conquests, 10% of the world's population at the time. Entire civilizations erased in years. And yet, the Mongol Empire created the first truly global trade network. It carried Chinese printing technology to the Islamic world, which carried it to Europe, where it became the printing press. The book you've never read, The Idea That Changed Your World, it traveled a road the Mongols built. It moved gunpowder from China to the west, where it ended the age of knights and castles forever. The diplomatic passport was a Mongol invention. Meritocracy in government, promotion by ability, not by birth, was formalized under their rule centuries before Europe accepted it. And Genghis Khan is the direct ancestor of roughly 16 million people alive today, 1 in every 200 humans on Earth. More descendants than any other person in recorded history. He is, statistically, part of more living people than any king, emperor, or prophet who ever lived. He was illiterate. He had no city. No palace. No written law until he invented one. He came from the most unforgiving landscape on earth. And he built something that had never existed before and has never been replicated since, an empire that touched every corner of the known world. The steppe is still there. Still vast. Still silent. Still indifferent. And somewhere in that landscape, the world's greatest conqueror was born in a camp smaller than a village, and decided, against every probability, that the world was not big enough to leave unconquered.